This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv.
Buckley literally deleted something off this, but Undo took care of it.
How?
All right.
Okay.
With his head.
I have never, I'm going on record right now, I've never had a harebrained idea.
He's had lots of ideas that have hair on them.
Did you just say I've had lots of ideas with hair on them?
Yes. Okay.
Oh my goodness. What?
The devil?
I found him.
Why am I not surprised that he's in here?
He's over here in this bucket. There he is. Mr. Sin! Not bothering us anymore.
How are you doing there, Foxy?
Such a beef wit.
Do you know who you're talking to? I'm Mr. Sin. You can't talk to me like that. You don't have to be rude.
I said beef wit.
Beef wit, that's even worse. No, I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of finding out what you're doing after this show. Maybe we could go grab some drinks or something. What do you say?
No thanks.
Hey everyone, welcome to Together We Build. My name is Chris Behnke. I'm here with Prudence O'Haire, and I'm here with Buckley, my trusty sidekick. And I guess what I'd like to ask you first, Prudence, as we launch into this amazing episode is, what is the best advice you have ever heard in your entire life?
Okay. I think one piece of advice was by Winston Churchill.
Yep.
And this one I think of all the time. If you're going through hell, keep going.
Don't stop.
Do not
Don't
stop. Don't
It's not a good
stop.
time to take a potty break.
Nope.
Keep going.
Yes.
Keep moving.
So I think that is one of the best pieces of advice.
That is a fantastic piece of advice.
Yep.
So
How about you?
the best advice I've ever heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think one in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Are you going to explain it?
It means that if you have one bird already, just be happy with that. Don't be worried about the two that are in the bushes.
Huh.
You get this?
Well, I guess, but okay. Let's move on.
I'm going to let everyone ponder that for a while. It's good advice. It's Buckley's favorite advice. Buckley's favorite advice is don't mess with jacklynx. What is it? Messing with Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Don't mess with Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a fan of messing with Sasquatch. He's basically, he leaves him alone, which is good. So are you going to tell people what this episode's about? It's called The Unlikely Partnership.
Yeah. The Unlikely Partnership. That was based on a sermon that you did a couple of weeks ago, which we will leave the link in the notes.
The link to the message.
Yes.
It's really good. Unlikely
Yes.
Partnership. We can't talk about it yet because we haven't done our trivia.
No.
I just want to not leave people hanging.
And
you know
our
what I'm
fun
saying?
new word, so everybody can feel reasonably
Okay, do you want to do the new word or the
educated.
trivia first? What do you think? What
Let's do the word first.
Let's do the word first.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
All right.
Let's do the word first.
I have picked this word today because I think that a lot of us probably have heard this one, but it's not like really abnormal.
Drop it. Drop the word.
Faction.
Faction?
Yes, not fraction. Faction. F-A-C-T-I-O-N.
Yeah, that's like a group of zealots that are kind of doing their thing.
Maybe I need to pick a different one then.
Why? Is that what it is?
It's a small dissenting group within a larger one.
Yeah, it's a faction.
So William Shakespeare said, I will keep where there is wit stirring and leave the faction of fools.
That's another good piece of advice. Leave the faction of fools.
Yes.
So you're going to drop another word on us?
How about about Felicity? Do you know what Felicity means?
Felicity. I feel like I should.
I think it's a really cute girl's name, actually. It's a state
Did
of...
you just say it's a really cute girl's name?
Yeah.
Or is it a really cute name for a girl?
Yeah, same thing.
It's not the same
state
thing.
Of blissful happiness.
It's definitely not the same thing. One is a cute name for a girl. The other is a name for a cute girl.
Well, anyway. I like the word.
Felicity.
I think it's fun.
That's the name of Buckley's girlfriend, Felicity.
He is in Felicity right now.
Yeah,
actually.
He's basically...
A state of blissful happiness.
Oh, yeah. He's basically dialed. Okay, so now we're going to go into the trivia.
Yep.
You, Prudence, for season 3, have chosen animal trivia. So you brought this on yourself. I just want to remind everyone.
Bring it on. Let's see what
all
you
of
got.
the viewers out there. Okay, so the first trivia question is, what is a polar bear's skin color? I've got the cheer button ready and the no button.
It is black.
Absolutely dead on. Yes. Right. A polar bear's skin color is black. Oh my goodness. Nice job. Batting 1,000 right now. What are the only 2 mammals? Question number 2. What are the only 2 mammals that lay eggs?
I thought you already asked this one.
Well, do you remember?
It was a platypus.
Okay.
And what was that, Jason?
And Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
No. Bigfoot's mythical.
Oh, yeah. A platypus and...
So if I did ask this question, which I kind of feel like I did ask it actually, now that you're saying it, you didn't remember.
Yeah, well, I remembered half of it.
Spiny anteater.
Oh, the anteater.
Yes, that's what the ants
they
are. What
the
ants are what the anteaters eat. That's from one of our kids' books.
Have you ever looked in the face of an anteater?
I can't say that I have, to be honest.
Like their tongues are like seriously long. And they don't have any teeth.
So have you looked in the face of an anteater?
Well, on like a little video. That's the closest I've got.
Prudence has dozens, if not hundreds, of little animal videos that she uses during when she does the babies class. She whips out all these little videos. Have you ever looked in the face of an anteater? And the kids are all, they're traumatized. They got to call their parents. It's a nightmare. What are 12 or more cows called? A group of 12 or more. It's a dozen cows. A dozen cows. What's a dozen or more called? If you get this, it's worth $5.
A click?
No, but it's surprisingly how close that is to the real word, which is a flink.
I've never heard of that before.
Me neither, but that's animal trivia that you brought on yourself.
I didn't do cow 4-H, so I wouldn't know.
A flink. Okay. What is a female donkey called? This is our last one for the day. A female donkey. Yeah, I can tell by the look on your face. If you're listening to this, you need to go watch the video version because she's got a look. Prudence is, where are you going, Buckley? She's got a look on her face that absolutely says she's got something inappropriate in her mind that she should not be saying.
No, it's extremely pure. Extremely pure. I don't know. Should I know the answer to this?
I mean, I have no idea.
Okay, you don't.
I mean, I know what the answer is because I'm looking at it, but I didn't know because I knew.
A mirror?
A Jenny.
A Jenny?
Yeah. A female donkey. Okay, I think we have surpassed the grace people give us for this trivia.
Okay.
And we should move on.
All right. Okay, so
but I'm going to give you 3 cheers. Wait, was that 2? 1, 2, 3. That was 3.
Just remember,
because you
everybody,
did so incredible. You did so unbelievably good.
The 2 mammals that lay eggs are the platypus and the anteater. You learned it first here.
You have done incredible with the trivia today.
All right. I don't get so trigger happy with that thing. Okay, so let's move on.
I'm ready.
The unlikely
partnership.
partnership.
Yes.
Is this like a Democrat working with the Republican type
I mean,
thing?
that would be an unlikely partnership. Actually, that's not true. They're constantly partnering on nefarious activities, in my opinion. But this show isn't a political show, so we're going to leave that right where it is.
It's not. Okay, so then why don't you go ahead and tell us what your inspiration is?
Yeah, so one of the so we have some clips from this message. I think you should check it out. But basically, what we go through in this message is we talk about the reality that God has created each person on purpose for a purpose to fit into his grand scheme, to fit into his kingdom purposes. So we're all here for a reason. No one's here by accident. No one's just, oops, we had a few spare parts, so we whipped up a Prudence O'Haire. Like, that's not true. That's not a thing. Every single person has a purpose, and it should fit in a special way with God's plan. His plan ultimately is for us to go into all the world and make disciples of nations. So that's go know Jesus and make him known. Go make Jesus famous in all the good ways that everybody knows who he is. That's really what our goal is. And so if that's true, then we have a role to play, lessons to learn, skills to develop. You know, we've just got all this stuff. So the enemy comes in and tries to corrupt that, and he tries to destroy it. And in this message, which you need to go check out, I talk about a word that an amazing gentleman that goes to our church told me. His name is Leo Savage. He's actually a physician, and he gave us this word, and it had to do with the season of life that Prudence and I are going through right now, which is a pretty hard season. And he said that in the word, what he told us was that I am like a samurai sword being refashioned in the fire. And then he talked about what that's like and how they do it, and that Prudence was the handle, and in order to refashion the sword, they have to take the handle off. And then it goes through this process where they have to like heat it up and re-smash and refold the steel, and heat it up and refold the steel. That's how they make these swords. So the unlikely partnership is actually, part of this word that he gave, which is that the enemy is striking these blows, and the blows are hitting the sword, and they're hitting the sword, and they're hitting the sword. And the enemy thinks he's destroying us with these blows. And surely if we let him, they will destroy us. But if we allow God's like the master, the master at taking the sword, and he's actually moving the sword just right so that as the enemy strikes the blow, God actually adjusts it so that the blow, while it hurts and painful and doesn't feel good, is actually reshaping and re-strengthening the sword. So the unlikely partnership is actually a partnership between God and the devil in helping craft us where we need to be to do our part here on the earth. It's just that the devil doesn't know he's partnering. God is using his attack, if we allow him, to make us stronger, to be a more powerful weapon against the enemy. That's the unlikely partnership.
So this falls in line with the Bible verse, what the devil means for evil, the Lord will use for good.
100%. That gets a cheer.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Well, I don't know about you, but I just really don't love the hard seasons.
I'm honestly not a fan. If I'm just going to be shooting real straight with you guys, I'm not a fan of the hard seasons. I think most people don't like them. I think the enemy's goal is to make it so that we don't see the hard seasons for what they can be if we let the Lord use them. That's the trick.
Right. Because in all of the adversity and the trouble and the difficulty lies the opportunity of us being able to grow.
Right. Yep. Now we talk about this. We've talked about this many times before, like, from the standpoint of like a Joseph season going through Joseph. And I think it's important to understand it from that perspective to some degree, because what happened with Joseph is he had some words from the Lord. He had some dreams. He thought they were amazing, but like then he went through this period 20, 30 years where it didn't line up with the dream that he thought he had. Well, he had a real dream. And there's a couple of things that are really important about that. One is the dreams were true, but they didn't feel true for a couple of decades. So one lesson to learn from that is we can't just let the reality of what's around us dictate what's true. So the word that God gave Joseph remained true even when he was sold to the gypsies, when he was sold into slavery, when he was wrongly accused in Potiphar's house, when he was in prison. Like the dream and the word from the Lord was still true during all of those parts of his life, even though those parts of his life sucked bad. The word was still true. So a couple things is that God speaks to us through dreams. He tells us, he gives us his word through dreams and visions and things like that. That's throughout scripture all over the place. We need to pay attention to it. He gives us that so that we have something to remember. Like when Paul told Timothy, hey, remember the words that were spoken of you as you fight the good fight. That's in 1 Timothy. Like he gave him that because he speaks to us through these words. So that's one lesson. Second lesson is we can't let the reality of what's around us looks like a prison, must be a prison. We can't let that change our identity. So Joseph never did that. No, Joseph never said, well, I'm in prison right now, so I must be a prisoner. He held fast. I mean, we have to assume that from scripture, we have to assume that he held fast to the truth that God gave him because he never wavered in that belief. You let the Lord move the sword around and the blows, the prison, the slavery, the bad things, the wrong accusations that were happening against us. He let the Lord use those to refashion him into a stronger sword, if you will.
All right. You have some sort of a clip that we're going
I've
to
got
listen
some
to?
clips. I feel like that dog is trying to sneak away.
He's crawling under the coffee
So
table.
you just keep your guard on him. All right, I got a couple of clips. Let's play the first one. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip now.
We have to have a foundation that God is absolutely 100% good. And that when it doesn't seem that way, it's because we don't understand. And there are some times where we won't understand on this side of heaven. That doesn't change that God's absolutely good. The truth that God is absolutely good must sit as the cornerstone of our interpretation of the situations. Because if we don't, we're going to see the prison walls and we're going to say, golly, it looks like a prison, must be a prison, I must be a prisoner. Therefore, I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to fulfill the assignment of a prisoner, which means Egypt doesn't get saved.
Okay, so God is absolutely good all the time.
Right.
In every season. He does not change from his goodness. And what you're saying is it is imperative that we believe this wholeheartedly, because that is a big part of what carries us through the tough times.
Yeah. If we just look at the situation around us, it would be very reasonable to deduce that God's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where, and I think, unfortunately, in Christianity, this happens a lot. This is what I mean, I didn't coin this phrase, but this is what I refer to as letting the circumstance or the experience, either one, create theology. So instead of saying, what did God say? What did the Bible say? What is the truth? Instead of starting with that and saying, hey, it doesn't feel like that's true, so I have more to learn, more to understand, my timing's off, or my understanding's incomplete. Instead, we go, oh, I must know everything, so I'm going to reinterpret what theology is to match what I see around me.
Mm-hmm.
So a perfect example of that is a lot of the church believes that the supernatural doesn't exist today. And they believe that largely. They make up all kinds of theological reasons that are very easily disproven with the Bible. But the reason that they mostly believe that is because they haven't seen it. Because they didn't experience a supernatural healing. They then
therefore
say,
it does not exist.
so therefore it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. I've got to create a new theology of bizarreness about how only the disciples that had their hands laid on by Jesus, and those are the only ones that could do it, because they're not experiencing it. So they have to create a justification instead of starting from the truth of Scripture and saying, what do I need to do to make my reality match what God said? Instead, I'm going to change what God said to match my reality. So in the case of Joseph, if he did that, he would say, well, I guess I didn't understand the dream God gave me, or it wasn't a God dream, it was a devil dream, because I'm actually in a prison. So I must be a prisoner, not a prince.
Mm-hmm. So it's within the tough seasons, within the places that it feels like you're behind bars, and, you know, the first heaven, earthly reality
Right.
says that you are, is where it is extremely important to stay focused on what he has said about us, which means that you have to stay in the word, and you have to consistently come back to God is good all the time, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I already mentioned this once, but it's like a verse in Timothy where Paul's saying to Timothy, remember the words concerning you, because you need those to fight the fight, bro. That's a Chris paraphrase. But the point is, the words mattered. You need to remember them. Don't let the reality that's around you right now try to convince you that what God said isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
See, what happens is we get we hear from the Lord, we get a word, we get a dream, we get something. But the Bible tells us that we hear in part and we see in part. So we get that up here, and we're down here. And so we're like, hey, that looks pretty good. And so, but we're down here and we don't have any of this. God said this. So we fill in between the two. We fill all these in with assumptions. Assume. Now, I'm not saying that it's like sinful to try and figure out what God's going to do, how he's going to do it. Where it becomes sin is where we say these assumptions that weren't from the Lord, that we made up, are the word from the Lord. And then when they don't work out, we're angry with God, or we try to justify, we try to shoehorn our way into figuring that out. Because this is what God said. This is the reality that we know. The stuff in between is the part that we don't know. And it's okay to not know. But what Paul was telling Timothy was, remember the words concerning you. Remember this. When this doesn't feel like it's adding up, remember this, Timothy. Yeah, but this is a nightmare right now. I know. Remember this, Timothy, and fight the good fight on your way.
Yep. That's exactly right. Do you have another clip?
I do have another clip, and actually it's a perfect clip because I think, so I'm going to play this. There's two clips. I'm going to play them kind of similar or kind of close to each other. We can chat between the two, but this clip, it's real short. I'll play it here in a second. But basically, you got to understand that God doesn't do things on accident. And he's telling us when he went to leave, he left us with the Great Commission, go into all the world and make disciples of nations. That make disciples of a nation, not in a nation. Like that's a big job that's never been done yet. So this is an assignment that we all have as Christians. We're supposed to do that. That's going to take cooperation, but it also has to start with the understanding and a realization that we are part of the story that unfolds to make that happen. I'm going to give myself a cheer for that. And I'm going to play this video that talks about us having a purpose on purpose before the foundation of the earth.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So like before he was a one cell, God said, I already knew you, Jeremiah. So that's really interesting and kind of opposite of what the world says about you, that you were accidentally just happened to happen. Psalm 139:16. Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and your book were all written. The days that were ordained for me when as yet there was not one of them. In other words, the book and the days and the knowledge were all known by the Father before I was created, when I was still an unformed substance, before my parents even smiled at each other. God knew the book was written, the plan was in place.
Do you want to comment on that? I have another clip about the Great Commission and that we're called to something to be a part of it. But what are your thoughts, Prudence, on this, the reality that God pre-understood why he wanted us before he made us?
Well, I think that it is a definite adventure story for every human being to try to understand what direction the Lord is asking us to go into. I was recently listening to a message by someone else, and they were talking about the different parts of faith and how the Lord doesn't give us the entire map. It's literally like one step at a time. And you don't get the next piece until you do what you've been asked to do.
It's like some sort of weird Indiana Jones adventure movie.
Well, yeah. I
You gotta
mean,
solve- Where are
it
you
totally
going, bro?
is. I mean, and if you like, I think that there's lots of games that are made up for human beings where that is the scenario where it's like you don't get the next clue until you get to this clue. You get through this level or challenge.
Right.
If you look at it that way.
New level unlocked.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I think that it is a very it's hard work to keep going in the process where it just feels like you just don't know which way to turn.
Yeah.
Especially in the dark seasons, because
Yeah.
I think we all get them. We all have them. They all look different.
Yeah. Despite what Instagram says, everyone has difficult times. It's part of the human condition.
It is. It's a part of our journey, and we don't gain perspective without the adversity that happens in our lives, and we don't mature without the difficult times.
Totally.
And so, we have the choice on what we want to do when we're handed the difficult seasons, and I think that a lot of us want to curl up and just go to bed early. It's what I would prefer.
Yeah.
I just want to drown it out. I want to numb it, and I don't want to look at the challenge that's in front of me, especially if I don't really see a lot of clarity on where I'm supposed to go next.
Totally. Which brings us perfectly like a laser beam to this next clip.
Okay.
I'm going to play it.
We need to understand that we have a calling, and that even though you're like, wow, make disciples of nation, you mean like go to kings and presidents and heads of countries and like influence them and like help them to shift for what the Bible calls to go from a goat nation to a sheep nation. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just, this is just what I do here in Central Oregon, or this is just what I do here. Again, no one person, no matter how amazing they are, is actually going to be able to accomplish that. We saw Solomon, I think, got close. But again, one person can't pull it off. It's never been done. There's not been a sheep nation made from a goat nation. But that's what we're told to do. So what it means is we have to make sure we're actually doing this collaboratively together. We have to actually figure out how to do that together.
So no one person can accomplish everything?
No one person can do it all on their own. Like, we're part of a bigger story. And unfortunately, Prudence, going to bed early probably isn't part of your calling.
Well, maybe just some days.
Some days it's okay if you need rest. And God will send a raven
Yeah,
with
just
some
not
tasty morsels to
consistently.
feed you and give you sustenance.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Rephrase the question.
Well, what are your thoughts on this kind of thing that we're unpacking here, that we all have a part to play, and that there's this strange reality that if we allow, I actually feel like it's incredible grace. I feel like it's a picture of incredible grace from the Lord, that if we allow him, God will use what seems like an attack from the enemy to actually refine us into a more powerful tool against the enemy.
Maybe it is an attack. We get those, definitely.
Oh, they are attacks. And that's really the thing here, is that it is attacks. It's not that it feels like an attack, it's that it is an attack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so incredible about what God does, I believe, in this scenario, is he actually will use attacks from the enemy if we allow him. See, we have to allow him, okay? If we allow him, he'll actually use those attacks to benefit us.
Mm-hmm. So you have to, I think, in a lot of the cases of the difficult, hard seasons, it's about really just being in a serious posture of surrender to the Lord, and really staying close to hearing what it is that he is asking you to do, where he's asking you to step, where he's asking you to go or say or participate in or not participate in. Because I think that when we're in the super dark seasons, when the hammer is really coming down and it's just unrelentless,
Yeah.
We're super vulnerable to shutting down.
Yeah.
To just throwing in the towel, to just quitting, to just saying, you know what? No, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so done with this. And we want to go and figure out how to solve our problems in a different way.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
take that power under our own power system. Because faith is so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard to have. It's so hard to grow.
Yeah.
And when you're in that difficult, tough season, that doesn't seem to be relenting and letting up, it's even harder to have the faith. But it's in those seasons of our lives that we get to see the miracle after miracle that the Lord produces and chooses to demonstrate to us. Because if we don't have the space for him to demonstrate his power, then we don't get to see that in our lives.
Totally.
And I'm not saying that we, should purposely go and, get ourselves in trouble just so we can see a miracle.
Yeah.
Don't be dumb.
Paul would say, may it never be. Should we go sin so that grace can abound? May it never be. In other words, don't be thinking dumb, fool. That's what he was really saying. That's my interpretation. I think what you're saying is so powerful, but it requires a right way of thinking about what's happening. And I don't want you guys to hear what we're not saying, which is pretend like bad stuff isn't happening and just be like, everything is just going horribly. And you're like, nothing bad is happening. Like, we're not saying pretend. We're not saying lie.
Well, I think even just being honest and authentic about how hard it is, it makes it a lot more real and translatable to other people.
Totally.
Because
look a third of the Psalms were David complaining about how things sucked. So God's not asking us to lie to ourselves and say things are great when they suck. He's saying, and I think the message here is you can't just look at the data around you, this exact situations. You can't look at the room around you and go, wow, I'm in a prison, so I must be a prisoner. You can't let the situation around you tell you your identity.
Right.
That's the thing. You only can go from what God said. And that's, again, I don't know why I keep coming back to this verse. I didn't even talk about this verse in the message, but that's what Paul was saying to Timothy. Remember the words from the Lord concerning you, Timothy. Because Timothy was having a hard time. He was definitely whining and complaining and depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading into it a little bit, but not too much, because every time Paul wrote to him, he was trying to encourage him. So he must have needed it.
Yeah.
He was frustrated.
I mean, I feel like, like the adventure movies like Indiana Jones or, Journey to the Center of the Earth or, these type of adventure movies is very similar to how we humans have our different seasons and adventures in our lives. It's literally like figuring out the next step in the moment. Like you literally don't know until it's in front of your face.
Right.
But these adventurers, they have a lot of knowledge and wisdom in where they are.
And they prepared.
And they have been prepared. They've been prepared mostly. I mean, I'm not sure where they get some of their granola bars from, but
The little satchel they carry. It's full of granola bars.
The idea. They're prepared
stuff.
and they have the knowledge and, but they're after a treasure. And it always just, I think it's interesting how we're always drawn to watching adventures like that.
Yeah.
Because our human nature is identifying with the hardships that they're going through.
Totally.
Even though maybe we don't completely. It's a different story.
Right.
But at the same time, in our lives, we're kind of identifying with this.
Totally. Yeah. So, as we're kind of, just a couple minutes left in this episode, but as we're kind of thinking about this, I think one of the most important things to understand is, A, God talks to us. He still talks to us. And it's important to understand that because we are going to need to hold, like Paul told Timothy, we're going to need to hold on to what he said. That's one. Two,
We have to remember.
we have to remember.
Yeah,
You can't remember if you didn't pay attention the first time.
right.
There's nothing to remember if you missed it. Okay. You have something else on that? The second thing is that we were made on purpose, for a purpose before the foundation of the earth. We've got a reason that we're here. And the enemy wants us to not fulfill what that is. So he's after it. Okay. So that's number two. Number three is we only can get our identity from God. So like with Joseph, or actually lots of these examples, Jeremiah, David, anytime they began to get their identity from the situation around them, that's when trouble happened. So think about this. So there's a point in David's story where he gets his identity from the Lord and he can't be defeated. The guy's, it's unshakable. Then there's this time where he's getting his identity from the Lord and he's running from Saul and he's just running and running and running forever. He's just forever running. But he just doesn't waver on knowing what his identity is from the Lord, what he's called to. And he doesn't even allow well-meaning, mighty men to convince him to kill Saul early. Like he's just dialed. But then there's a point where he kind of forgets his identity and he's freaking out. And he goes down to the Philistines camp and is like, it's like the second he's forgetting his identity, or like when he made his, super famous mistake with Bathsheba, it's because if you read the scripture, it says during the time when kings go out to war, David was at the palace. So he forgot his identity and he was messing around at the palace.
Well, you know what they say. Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Is that what sounds like something your aunt would say?
Probably did.
The point is, you have to be getting your identity from the Lord. When you don't, it doesn't go well. And then And then I guess that's the thing, is that you can't let the situation around you dictate. And then I guess the last part of this is that I feel is so powerful is that the God is so gracious and merciful and incredible that he'll actually use, if we let him, our own bad choices, the bad choices of those around us, the fact that we live in a fallen, he'll use all of that together to reshape us into a more mighty and powerful weapon to use against the enemy. That's crazy. That's incredible.
We just have to let him.
Yeah, like we can resist this, we can fight it,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not going to go well. In fact, every example where that happens, it doesn't go well in Scripture. I'm talking about the Bible.
Well, the mission gets aborted.
The mission gets aborted.
And then you don't get the treasure.
And then you don't get the treasure.
And that's really unfortunate.
And it makes a very lousy movie, too.
Yeah, it does.
Like, no one's
All
going to
around.
watch Indiana Jones movie if he completely fails and Marcus, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, if it doesn't, like, you got to keep your eye on the prize, folks. And you can't let the situation that you're in define your identity, or you will for sure fail.
Mm-hmm. And we're preaching to ourselves, aren't we?
Yes. Definitely experiencing this, trying to learn the very lessons we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess with that, we're out of time. Thank you for hanging out with us. I want to tell you about a couple of things. First of all, you got to check us out on our app. So if you go to the App Store on Apple or Android or your Roku TV or your Amazon Fire, any of these, we got this app, and you search for Eagle Space Mountain Space Bend. You will find our app. And on the app, you can watch all the episodes of Together We Build, which is this amazing show, plus other incredible content. You've got to check it out. It's fantastic. You can also find all this stuff on the chrisandprudence.com website or the Chris and Prudence YouTube channel. You got to check that stuff out. If you want to support what we're doing here at Eagle Mountain, you can go to eaglemountain.global, click the give button, or in the app, you can do this too. We love that. It's difficult and expensive to create content like this. And our ministry would love it if you've been blessed by this, if you would support what we're doing here. But like, subscribe, do all the stuff. And actually, if you could take a second, think about who this message might bless and actually go and share it with them. That'd be amazing. I would personally appreciate that if you would do that. And they would appreciate it too. I think there's a lot of people that need to hear this message of encouragement about the tough seasons that they're going through. So take a second, think about who that might be, share it with them. And I guess we'll see these guys on the next episode, right, Prudence?
That's usually what we say.
That's usually what we say. Cheers. We'll see you guys on the next episode. See you later.
Thank you for watching Together We Build with Chris and Prudence. To learn more about this and other amazing programs, visit eaglemountain.global. To learn more about Chris and Prudence and the ministries they serve, visit chrisandprudence.com.